Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Brian Foote here to talk to you about investing. 11 fundamental issues facing most investors. Thank you for joining, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already to the 2,500 plus people who already are subscribed. Thanks for coming back, and I appreciate you. 11 fundamental issues facing most investors. How did I come up with this list? Well, somebody came to me over the past few days, one of my clients, good friend of mine as well, and said, tell me the biggest things that you take away from client calls. What are the biggest problems that they're talking about? And what are the biggest problems that you've seen over the past 25 years of doing this, 25 plus years of doing this, that you run into for the typical investor who wants to work with you? I think the first one is they're over diversified. What does that mean? Well, a typical person that I talk to has too many mutual funds, too many ETFs, and by definition, you're diluting yourself. If you want to dilute yourself, the best way to do so and have exposure to the stock market is buy an S&P 500 or other diversified index at a low cost. This isn't just my advice. This is really the advice from Warren Buffett. So if you're not interested in doing it yourself and you don't want to hire someone like me, go buy an index fund that matches the S&P 500 and do one at a low cost. You will, over time, have exposure to the U.S. stock market, which historically has been the place to be. I would say dollar cost average, because there you will actually end up with drawdowns. That is a certainty. In fact, it's the only certainty in the stock market, is that occasionally you will overpay and occasionally the market will pull back. And we have had multiple pullbacks over my lifetime. Over my career, I've witnessed multiple 20% drawdowns in the stock market. That happens. The problem is that if you're over diversified and you're paying too many fees to too many people, you're going to do worse than the stock market. The number two thing, interestingly, is that most investors I run into are long only. Over the years, people have been inculcated with the idea that one should only be long all the time. And this is something that stands in stark contrast to every other major asset that you're involved in. For instance, you insure your car. In fact, by law, you need to have some kind of insurance on your car because accidents happen. You buy a house, the mortgage company asks you to insure the home, and it's also good practice to do so, especially in areas where you're prone to floods, but certainly everybody is prone to an occasional fire. Most of us insure our lives, right? Your greatest asset is your time, and you can't really calculate what that's going to be. Your earnings power could diminish, unfortunately, in an instant, and that's the selling case for life insurance brokers. Well, what happens with the stock market? Well, just as I pointed out in one that people could buy low-cost index funds, there are ways to buy index ETF puts. We'll talk about that in much more detail. Don't do this at home. That is advanced study, but talk to your advisor about insuring your portfolio. There are ways to do so, and if you can't talk to your advisor about that, let's talk. Number three, it's kind of a corollary to one. If you're over diversified, you don't know what you own, right? You have too many things in the portfolio. Again, if you want to be passive and you want to just be exposed to the stock market, go buy a diversified, not over diversified, but a diversified index fund at a low cost, and sit back and know that you are exposed to the juggernaut that has been the U.S. economy via the S&P 500. But if you don't know what you own, I'm here to educate you, and you should actually get potentially less diversified, understand the businesses that you own, and follow Buffett's advice, which is consider each individual investment you're making as one of only 20 that you can make across a lifetime. That's a concept that he's introduced multiple times, that if you do want to make an investment in the stock market, consider that investment one of 20 punches, as he says. Number four, people trade too much. Yeah, believe it or not, and this was more prevalent earlier in my career, but the people who would really make a lot of money would be the stockbrokers, because the commissions they would charge to people who like to frenetically trade would be very high, right? Turnover benefits two things. One, the IRS if you're right, and two, your brokerage firm regardless. Try to be more decisive about your investment, and value investing, I think, is one way to do that. Number five, they worry about tax losses, right? So the idea, and what I mean there, is that they worry about the fact that a highly appreciated stock that's achieved fair value and maybe surpassed what they think the fair value is, they don't want to sell because they don't want to pay capital gains taxes. I've seen people get into big trouble by avoiding capital gains taxes. On a stock that went up fivefold, they said, I don't want to pay the tax man. The stock pulled back considerably, and they could have figured out a way to get rid of that and paid a long-term capital gains tax. Number six, follow technical approaches. Too many people, when they don't do the fundamental analysis, like to look at charts. Now, the arguments that I will get and have gotten over the past 25 plus years about technical analysis all boil down to there's many ways to get to heaven. I understand that a lot of people take technical analysis very seriously. The problem is, just like religion, it's subjective, and it could be very emotional. Here, we're buying pieces of businesses, right? You can actually get the quarterly and annual results of those businesses, and management teams often talk a lot about what they're up to. Looking at charts and squiggles on a screen may feel very scientific. It's not. It's not physics. It's not really even good math. I mean, there are some approaches at looking at volume and understanding, on a day-to-day basis, what trading is going on in the stock. But again, that's not really a good way to make money long term. I mean, look at the people who have made lots of money using technical analysis. There's none of them on the Forbes 400, and that was a great quote of a mentor of mine early in the career. Number seven, they follow the TV gurus. There's a lot of great pundits on television that come out and talk about stocks. In fact, when I was a young person, I used to watch Louis Rukeyser back in the 80s and 90s, and the people he would bring on. They're interesting to listen to, but I wouldn't follow them any more than I would follow any guru. I would follow my own analysis. And, certainly it's good to share ideas. That's the beginning of investigation. It's not the end. Number eight, don't know what questions to ask. This is a big one. You don't know what you don't know. Sounds a little trite, but I'm here to help you understand the right questions to ask. This is not complicated. It's not easy. I will tell you that. But it is not complicated, and there's a few crucial questions that you should ask about any business that you're investing in, public or private, and questions that you should ask of your advisor. Stick with me; I'll show you what to ask. Number nine, they don't know how to read company reports. I mean, this is a problem that we could get into about our educational system, that people aren't given enough background in one of the most capitalist societies to ever exist about how to read an income statement or how to read a balance sheet. Even your personal income statement and balance sheet, people aren't taught very well in schools. This is a problem of our education system, where they tend to focus on things that make people feel good and not things that are practical. But that's a whole other story. But you have no excuse now. Start to learn, and in 6 months you're going to be better than you were now, and in 3 years you could work magic, right? It takes 3 years to earn a CFA charter if you pass all 3 exams. So there is hope for everybody to get the level of competence that you need to understand how to read about the businesses that you own. I mean, not to be glib about it, but it again is not complicated. It's not easy to get these things into your head, but it's all available for free. And there's lots of people out there, myself included, that want to help you understand how to know more about the businesses that you own in the stock market. Number 10, people focus on the wrong metrics, right? And again, I'm here to help you with that. There's a few metrics that you'll hear practitioners like Warren Buffett and others talk about that are the crucial ones, right? And a couple of episodes back, I talked to you about free cash flow. Um, we've discussed what the earnings power of a business is, and I'll keep doing that because these are the things that you should have in your toolkit for analyzing any business, even if it's a private one. And the final one, I think, is that people focus too much on the short term. I think this is just a cultural thing, right? We love getting scorecards. We love sports, right? You watch football, it's baseball season right now. You want to focus on the latest pitch, right? And while investing is and can be exciting across a 6.5 hour trading session, the reality is that businesses cannot and should not be run based on the short term. It should be based on long-term value creation, right? Look at the fantastic businesses that are out there. Steve Jobs wasn't bouncing around trying to figure out what the next 90 days were about, and look what was created there. Warren Buffett certainly is not. Look at that track record. Now, you don't want people sitting there philosophizing over the next 1,000 years. You want management teams that have a bias for action, of course. But when we're too focused on day-to-day trading, or we're too focused on what the latest tidbit is, sometimes we miss the overall value drivers. So those are the top 11. Each one of these is a chapter, and in some cases, an entire book in itself. But stick with me, and we'll have more. And thanks for joining.